Hi, if you're watching this is my beginner yoga video. If you're from the future, you can watch my beginner partner yoga video where we go over a couple specific stretches in order to get deeper stretches in some positions or just some fun poses like plank on plank and stuff like that. So I've been at the beach this whole week, and for most of the mornings we've been doing some yoga. We've been doing them out on the beach, but I can't bring my phone out there, so I'm just going to do them up here. Because this is supposed to be meant for the beach and for beginners, we are using no equipment. It's just the mat or whatever surface you're going to be doing this on. We're going to do some light stretching. You can do this no matter what your skill level is or no matter what time of day you're doing this at. It's just a nice full body kind of relaxation thing, and you go on and doing what you were going to do. So without further ado, if you want to grab your water, set out a nice area for yourself, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to start with are wrist circles. And the way we're going to do that is to put our elbows together to get as much leverage as we can on our wrists and just start rolling. Usually I just do 7 each direction. And we'll switch arms. To get some arm circles in, I like doing some side to side, just switching which hand's over and which one's below. This is just a nice little warm up for the most mobile joints in the body. So we're going to start pretty light. Then we're going to do ankle circles. If ankle circles are too easy or you're just getting bored of doing ankle circles, try drawing out the alphabet, one letter at a time, with each foot. And if you want to make this shorter, just do half of the alphabet with one foot, half with the other, draw some numbers, I don't know. Static neck stretching circuit. So the way this is going to start, we're going to take our hand, put it behind your low back, depress your shoulder as much as you can, reach over with the other hand, grab in between your ear, and then pull. Switch sides. To get the rest of the neck muscles, what we're going to do is some very light pushing. You're going to take one hand, put it underneath your jaw. The other hand, you're going to put it up and behind your head. We're just going to look up and to the left. And hold. Some light pushing. Don't force a crack. Definitely don't. We're going to push down. We're going to switch sides. So one of the things we've been doing on the sand, which has been kind of fun, is just different static poses. So to simulate that, I'm going to stand on the yoga mat, which is a little bit more unstable. I'm going to put my foot up like this, externally rotate my foot all the way to get into more of like a tree pose. I'll wait a little bit. Again, to make this easier, just stay on a stable surface. If you want to make this harder, you can try closing your eyes. Or do both sides. If this is too hard, just try standing on one foot. And if you're kind of in that in-between zone, what you can do is start to hold the position and then just touch onto something very lightly. 1 finger, maybe 2. What you're trying to do is provide the most support that you can so that the stability in your foot is there. Alright, next thing we're going to do is for the hips. To make our way down, we're going to do a little squatting drill with external rotation. So the way this is going to work, I'm going to give you kind of like a lateral view. We're going to have our feet slightly externally rotated, somewhere in between hip and shoulder width apart, the usual. We're going to bend our knees. And once you get to about a quarter of the way down, what I want you to do is externally rotate this knee in and out. Try and keep the other leg completely still. We're going to do it 5 times, and then we're going to go down a little bit more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go down one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll come on. One more. Stand up. Switch the other way. you want to make these a little bit harder, you can put a band in between your knees, so you actively have to resist with the other leg. And that is honestly the best way to do this, but this is a no equipment video, so we're not. So we're going to make our way down to the ground for this next part. We're going to start with cat camels, or cat cows, whatever you prefer to call them. We're going to start by doing two different kinds. The first one we're going to do is try and sink our chest as close as you can to the ground, and then push up through your fingers and feel your back start to flex. Back. Hold, and push. You want your upper back to be the tallest part of you. We're going to hold each position for about 3 seconds. 7 times. That's because after 7 reps, you start getting diminishing returns on the benefits of the stretch, which namely are decreasing the intervertebral pressure between discs. So for our second version, we're going to do our lumbar cat camels. So a little bit harder with a mind-muscle connection to try and get this, but I want you to imagine pushing not your butt, but just your lower back out as high as you can. It's not going to be much higher or higher at all than your upper back for these, but you can see when I have this arch position here, we're going to start the same, but instead of pushing straight up like this, I'm going to push up and back with my low back. So now I'm kind of hunching over more. The idea is you want to draw your belly button up towards your spine and relax. Get that big pelvic tilt, right, big angle, and then flex back up. Before we get completely on the ground, we're going to do a couple more stretches. The first one is a leaning lunge. Now, I've made some other videos on this stretch, but the simple way is just foot up, get into a half or a split squat, whatever you want to call the position. You're going to put your arms up in the air. You're going to lean forward so you can feel the stretch here, maybe a slight pull in the opposite glute, and what we're going to do is lean to the side of the front leg. And what this does is create a deeper stretch throughout the obliques and into the hip flexor and the quad. While you're down here, if you're not quite feeling it in your quads or your hip flexors, what I want you to do is squeeze that back glute. Feel it. Back and switch sides. So now that we're done with the leaning lunge, we're going to do the world's greatest stretch. So I'm going to start in a push-up or a plank position. Put one leg all the way up. And then from here, we're going to create this tripod stance by having my foot down, one foot up, and my opposite hand on the mat. So with this inside arm, what I'm going to do is just come up and rotate, up and out. And if you have lower hip pain, if you have lower back and hip pain like I do, you'll probably get a couple pops in the pelvic girdle or your low back. Just reaching up and back. If this is too difficult, what I want you to do is just put that knee down and focus on the rotation. Switch sides. To get that, we're going to get into this nice quadruped position. And we're going to start by extending one leg all the way back and then holding one arm forward. We're just going to hold this for 3 sets of 10 seconds each side. So this one's probably the longest one duration-wise we're going to do. That's because it's an isometric position. Your muscles have to contract isometrically in order for you to hold this. So, sides. So next up is the pigeon, or the variation that I would do at home if I had equipment, is the loaded pigeon. So I'm just going to start by getting into that same old plank or push-up position. We're going to drop one knee forward like this. So we're a nice stretch in the hip. We're going to sit back onto it. And a normal pigeon pose would just be trying to hold this or carry this through a range of motion. So what we're going to do is just come up. If this is too difficult for you, then I recommend using your hands to help push yourself up and take this weight. Otherwise, what you can do is put your hands behind your back, cross your arms across your chest, have a weight in your hands, do whatever, you can come down, and then come back up. Switch back to the other ones. I like to breathe in on my way down and exhale my way up, especially if I'm using my arms to help. Let's switch sides. Moving forward, sitting down on it. So what I'm setting up for here are 90-90s, but we'll go through all the different variations. The first one is just a hip internal and external rotation, and what you're going to do is have one hip internally and one hip externally rotated. And we're going to just transfer over from side to side. Now if you're a little bit more advanced, what we can do is these 90-90s, but without using your arms for support and no leaning back. You might find yourself scooting up and down a bunch. That's normal. And the last one are shin box get-ups, which look like this. Set up in the exact same position, except now my foot's a little bit closer so I can form a triangle with my hip. So what I'm going to do from here is just use my hips to come up and forward and hold this position. Lock out the glutes, squeeze right here. No matter which variation you're doing, I want you to accumulate 10 side to sides. So this is me setting up for overhead dead bugs. Normally I would do this again with a weight in my hand, but we're gonna set up like this, a normal dead bug position. My feet are at this like 90-degree or kind of table, and my hands are straight up. I'm compressing or I'm squeezing my abs so that my lower back is in full contact with the ground. So from here, an overhead dead bug is just gonna be to take my hands, I'm gonna imagine I have a plate on them, and I'm going to lower them all the way down and back and try and extend from here. Get my shoulders to fully open up down here, and then come back up. Regardless of whether or not you have a weight in your hands right now, I want you to focus on your breathing. And as you bring it back, exhale, squeeze, push your abs down into the ground. You're going to do 10. So these are the sideline hip abductions. This is part of a low back circuit that I usually work on with clients hands-on. This is what I personally do for my low back pain that originates from a couple of injuries that I've had. Stuff like in the low back, the hip, the quadratus lumborum, you name it. The first thing we're going to do are sideline hip abductions. And that's just going to be laying down on your side, coming this leg all the way up. Trying to get it as high as you can. very 80s, like jazzercise reminiscent. If you want to make this a bit harder though, what you can do is go up and do a short lever side plank like this. Put your hands on your hips, make sure you're in a straight line. Bend this bottom knee so that it's at 90 degrees, and then lift from here. We're going to do 15 each side. Next is the up and back leg lifts with holds. So how we're going to do those, same thing. You can do this if you're sleeping in your bed. I do it before I go to sleep every night. And sometimes even when I wake up. So what we're going to do is to get the glutes to activate, we're going to come up and back and just hold here. And from here I'm squeezing as much as I can. Try and keep my leg as tight as possible. We're going to let it down. And come back up. If you need to build up to it, I recommend doing 5 5-second holds. But if these feel pretty easy, I'd recommend doing 3 10-second holds each side. I'm just going to do a couple here, go back and forth. If you need to pause the video to complete your sets, go ahead. If you need to skip ahead because you're already done, go ahead. So we only have 2 more stretches left, and the first one we're going to do is the low back rotational. So how I like to set this up is lay completely on my back. We're going to take one knee, bring it up to the chest, really pull it up there. Then I'm going to rotate all the way over to my side like I'm sleeping. I'm going to keep this knee grounded. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my right arm here to hold down my left knee, and with this arm I'm going to reach up and back. You always want to keep this knee planted because we're trying to rotate from bottom to top. Feel free to hold these last 2 as long as you like. I'm going to go ahead and switch sides. And for our last pose, we're going to do the child's pose with a little bit of reaching. So, the key to setting this one up, to make sure you don't have to reposition yourself, is to put your feet flat, give your knees enough space so that you can fit your whole torso underneath. So we're just going to reach forward from here, sit back into it, try and keep my heels connected to my butt the whole time, and then just slowly inching forward with my fingers. So I'm going to hold each of these for 15 seconds, but in the meantime, I'm going to start move my hands over this direction. Maybe even push my hips a little bit over too, and feel the pull on my lower right back. we're done. So, thanks for joining me. My little last night here at the beach for some yoga.